And then, of course, on Monday, the entire matric class of 2020 will know their results. The independent schools' results showed only a very slight drop in the pass rate. But, of course, these are generally well-resourced facilities that can support learners through remote learning. Let's discuss this now with former MEC and Senior Research Associate at the University of Johannesburg, Professor Mary Metcalfe. Professor, I'm wondering if you're surprised at the IEB results. There was less than a percentage point drop in the results.
No, not surprised at all, Sally. As you've said, this is how the IEB results are consistent over time. And what it shows us is that even despite a major disruption to the system as a whole, the IEB schools have been able to maintain a kind of consistency that is not typical of the whole system.
Absolutely. And turning now to the government results, which are expected on Monday. Last year, I think the pass rate was 81.3%. Do you expect the government school pass rate to drop significantly?
The issue of the pass rate is always, I think, a red herring and something that isn't necessarily useful in the public debate, because the pass rate is an indication of those learners who made it to grade 12 and then actually wrote the exam and what pass rate for that percentage. So whether it's going to be 81% or 82 or 79 or 78 or 83, for me, should not be the public focus. The public focus should be what has been the impact of the pandemic on the performance of this year, the 2020 year. And the things that we should be looking for are, firstly, how many children did we lose? How many registered but did not write? Is it greater than in other years? How do we retrieve those learners? Is there an increase in inequality? Whereas the DBE has been managing to slowly close the gap in that inequality, are we seeing that poorer schools, where there haven't been the resources at home, such as in the IEB schools, have done less well? So those are some of the things we should be looking at, Sally.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. A lot of kids would have dropped out, probably children just hanging on, just drifted away during the pandemic year. Nonetheless, I do think that the pass rate is perhaps a blunt instrument, but it is one indicator, not the only one by any means. You're quite right. Do you think that that rate's going to go down significantly?
Yeah, I never make a prediction, just because partly it's the distraction. But let's just see that the grade 12 class of 2020 had a lot of support. They were in school for the whole year, other than the hard lockdown period. They attended every day, whereas for the rest of the system, for example, the grade 12 class of 2021 was in grade 11 last year. They only came back to school on the 24th of August of last year. So they've lost a lot of time. So we need to look at the system. We need to look at recovery from COVID as a multi-year process. And we need to know that our grade 12s of last year need to be congratulated. The IEB candidates and the National Senior Certificate candidates for all of the work that they put into succeeding, and the schools that supported them so much under difficult conditions.
Prof, you're making such an excellent point that actually the grade 12s are in a way protected. So that suggests the grade 11s in government school that were in grade 11 last year might now be going into matric, still with disrupted times ahead, with possibly lots of fallouts in their learning because they were not as prioritized as the grade 12s. Do you think we might see an even more severe knock-on for this year's group of matrics?
The knock-on is going to be there. They weren't able to cover their grade 11 material in the way that last year's grade 12s did. And they then have to catch up under conditions where we may indeed see another surge. So grade 11s this year need more support even. The grade 12s of this year need even more support than last year's grade 12s, We need the WASA Matric program to grow, to expand its reach, to reach more learners, because it's going to be a very pressurized year for this year's grade 12s.
I want to ask you a final question about the emotional impact on children. We are hearing different views. One, that children are adaptable, they cope. But at the same time, we also know it's a vulnerable age and emotional time, particularly for those getting closer to matric. What is your sense of how they have coped so far? And particularly with results coming out, sadly, tragically, we see some children attempting or even succeeding in taking their lives because the results are not what they expected.
Grade 12 and leaving school is such a huge rite of passage, such a huge transition, that it assumes a sense of importance and high stakes for a young person, which can feel overwhelming if they're disappointed. I think we have a responsibility, all of us, in talking to young people, to reflect on our own failures. I failed Maths 1 at university. It was devastating. But we pick ourselves up, we carry on, we look for other alternatives. The sense that grade 12 and not doing as well as I liked is going to dictate the course of the rest of my life is what we need to change. It's a hurdle. It's not the only hurdle you'll face. There will be other opportunities. Let's look at alternatives. And to be able to, as a family and as a community, reflect on major stumbling blocks and how we've got through them.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are important conversations that need to happen this weekend before the results come out. You're young. There is always another opportunity. Such wise words. Thank you so much. Former MEC and Senior Research Associate at the University of Johannesburg, Professor Mary Metcalfe.